I remember the exact second my world split in two. I was sitting on my couch, a thick manila envelope clutched in my hands, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. My husband Ryan was on his way home. My sister Janet was pulling into the parking lot at the same time. From my window, I watched their cars park side by side. I saw them glance at each other, quick, guilty, before walking toward the building. Inside that envelope was the truth. Hotel receipts, deleted messages, a toothbrush DNA test, the kind of evidence you never want to see, especially when it proves the two people you love most have betrayed you in the worst possible way. 9 months after I lost my baby, my sister gave birth to a daughter. That little girl Kaylee wasn't just my niece. She was Ryan's daughter, my husband's child. The walls of my apartment felt too small to contain it all. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the envelope. Part of me wanted to scream, to storm into the room and burn everything to the ground. But another part of me, the part that had been broken for years, wanted to be calm, careful, precise. So when I opened the door and saw Ryan lounging on the couch with his phone and Janet casually sipping water in my kitchen like she belonged there, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just laid the papers out on the coffee table. We need to talk, I said. All three of us. That's where everything began to unravel. But to understand how I got here, I need to go back. Back before the envelope. Back before the betrayal. Back to when Janet first became a mother and everything started to crack. My sister Janet was always different. She grew up hating everything girly. She refused dolls, hated pink, and surrounded herself with boys. As kids, she'd sneer at me for painting my nails or braiding my hair. So lame, she'd say. I thought she'd outgrow it, but she never did. When she finally got pregnant, you'd think it would soften her. It didn't. She threw a massive gender reveal party. Blue balloons. Blue cupcakes. Blue streamers. She was convinced she was having a boy. I'll never forget the moment the smoke turned pink. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her shoulders slumped. She tried to laugh it off, but I could see the disappointment all over her face. That disappointment never went away. Through her pregnancy, she kept posting articles about toxic femininity and why girls are harder to raise. She joined Boy Mom, Facebook groups, and constantly talked about how she'd get her boy next time. When Kaylee was born, Janet wouldn't even use her name. She'd call her the baby. She dressed her only in beige and gray, like she couldn't stand the thought of acknowledging she had a daughter. At family gatherings, she'd roll her eyes at the way Kaylee cried for attention. Too needy, she'd complain. Too emotional. Too dramatic. Kaylee was too. She was just being a toddler. Meanwhile, my husband Ryan and I were drowning in infertility struggles. We'd been trying for 7 years. Medications, procedures. Heartbreak after heartbreak. Watching my sister treat her baby like a burden nearly killed me. One night I asked Janet, half joking, half desperate, if you don't want Kaylee, maybe let us raise her. Ryan and I would love her. She froze. Then she looked at me with this strange smile and said, I'd rather sell her than give her to you. I laughed nervously, thinking she was being dramatic. But in the back of my mind, something twisted. A year later, Janet announced she was pregnant again. This time she made it clear, if it was another girl, she'd terminate. She wasn't having another failure, it was disturbing to watch. She tried every trick in the book to guarantee a boy. Chinese calendars, oils, weird diets. She even looked into gender selection IVF. When the ultrasound confirmed it was a boy, she completely lost it, screaming, crying tears of joy, dropping to her knees like she'd won the lottery. At the gender reveal, when the smoke came out blue, little Kaylee toddled over to hug her. Janet shoved her aside so hard she fell and scraped her knee on the swing set. That was the moment I started keeping my distance. When Liam, the golden boy, was born, Janet traveled to Europe for the birth because it was cheaper. The family barely heard from her. But 2 months later, she set up a big FaceTime call with all of us to show off her baby. She cradled Liam like he was made of gold, showing off his little mommy's man onesie. Everyone cooed. Then my aunt asked, Where's Kaylee? Let us see her too. Janet's smile froze. Her eyes darted down. Then quietly she said, She's not here. What do you mean she's not here? My aunt pressed. That's when Janet admitted she'd given Kaylee up for adoption, while 6 months pregnant with Liam. She didn't want 2 kids and figured doing it before Christmas would save her money. The call exploded into chaos. My grandmother started gasping Kaylee's name, clutching her chest, and we had to rush her to the ER. I was screaming at Janet through the phone. Why didn't you tell me? Ryan and I could have taken her. Janet just shrugged. She disconnected. That night, after making sure Grandma was stable, I came home to Ryan acting weird. I caught him deleting photos from his phone. Old ones. From around the time of my miscarriage 4 years ago. Some looked like ultrasound screenshots. My stomach dropped. When I asked what he was doing, he snapped at me. Told me I was paranoid. Told me Janet's adoption was her business, and I should let it go. But I hadn't even mentioned Kaylee. That was the moment something clicked. I hired a private investigator the very next day. I told him, find Kaylee. Find out who her real father is. 2 weeks later, he handed me the envelope. Inside, hotel records. Deleted texts. DNA results from Kaylee's toothbrush. Everything pointed to the same thing. Kaylee wasn't just my niece. She was Ryan's daughter, and now I had the proof. I discovered my sister Janet gave away her daughter, Kaylee, like she was some unwanted gift. My grandmother nearly had a heart attack, my family was shattered, and I started to notice strange behavior from my husband, Ryan. That's when I hired a private investigator. The results were worse than anything I could have imagined. Kaylee wasn't just my niece. She was Ryan's daughter. But before I could decide what to do with that information, everything started spiraling out of control. After Janet dropped the adoption bomb on the family FaceTime call, nobody knew what to do. My mother cried for weeks. She kept replaying videos of Kaylee on her phone, whispering, "She was just here. She was just here." My dad didn't speak to Janet at all. He wrote her a single message, "You're dead to me," then blocked her. But me? I was torn between grief and fury. Kaylee wasn't just gone. She'd been erased. Her photos disappeared from Janet's social media. Her bedroom was cleared out, replaced with Liam's perfect boy nursery. It was like Kaylee had never existed. I couldn't stop thinking, why didn't she give her to me? She knew how badly I wanted a child. She knew how much I loved Kaylee. That question burned in my chest. Until the night I opened the PI's envelope. Then I understood everything. There were texts, screenshots from a backup server, that showed Ryan and Janet had been meeting in hotels for years. The messages weren't just sexual. They were intimate. They complained about me. They mocked me for always crying about babies, and then there was Kaylee. A toothbrush tested quietly without Janet knowing. The DNA matched Ryan. I wanted to vomit. I stayed up all night staring at the evidence, my mind spinning. By morning, I wasn't even crying anymore. I was numb. That evening, when Ryan walked in the door, I asked him straight out, "Is Kaylee yours?" His whole body stiffened. He tried to play dumb, but his eyes gave him away. "Why would you even say something like that?" he snapped. "Because I know," I said. My voice was cold, steady. "I have proof." For a long moment, he didn't speak. His chest rose and fell. Then he whispered almost too quietly to hear, "She wasn't supposed to exist." The words sliced through me. I felt my knees weaken. He saw my face and backtracked immediately. "No, that came out wrong. I just mean, it was a mistake. Janet and it only happened once. It wasn't supposed to mean anything, but the PI's evidence showed years of meetings. He was lying to my face." I didn't explode. I didn't throw him out. Instead, I smiled, nodded, pretended to believe him, because deep down, I knew I needed to be careful. If Janet was heartless enough to give away her daughter, and Ryan was soulless enough to betray me with my own sister, then who knew what they'd do if I pushed too hard, too fast? So I played dumb. I cooked dinner. I asked about his day, but every night when he fell asleep, I went through his phone, his email, his pockets. And every time I found more filth. Hotel bookings. Burner apps. Photos of Kaylee's artwork saved in his hidden folder, like he was keeping trophies of the child he'd abandoned. The more I uncovered, the more dangerous it felt. Weeks later, Janet came back from Europe with Liam, acting like nothing had happened. She showed up at our parents' house in a brand new SUV, wearing designer clothes, cooing over her baby boy. The family refused to speak to her. Except Ryan. While everyone else ignored her, I noticed Ryan sneaking outside to smoke with her, whispering like old friends. At one point, I caught them laughing together by the mailbox. When they saw me, they went dead silent. That night, Ryan accused me of turning everyone against Janet. I almost lost it. "She gave away her child like trash, Ryan. She didn't even tell us." "You're defending her?" His face went red. "You don't understand," and he stormed out. When he came back hours later, he smelled like her perfume. A few days later, my grandmother called me into her room. Her health had been declining ever since the shock of Kaylee's disappearance. She clutched my hand, her voice shaky. "Find Kaylee," she begged. "No matter what it takes. She's family. She's ours. Don't let her grow up thinking nobody wanted her." I promised her I would, but at the time, I didn't realize the cost of keeping that promise. One morning, I received an email from an anonymous address. The subject line was, "Your husband has more secrets." Attached were photos. Ryan holding baby Liam, smiling like a proud father. Janet sitting beside him, leaning into his shoulder. The timestamp? Just a week ago. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. He wasn't just Kaylee's father. He was in Liam's life too. Quietly, secretly. Like some hidden family on the side. The walls closed in on me. That night, I waited until Ryan was in the shower. I opened his briefcase. Inside, under his paperwork, was a document I'll never forget. A petition for joint custody. Not of Kaylee, of Liam. Signed by Janet. My hands went ice cold. What was I supposed to do? My husband wasn't just cheating. He was building a whole new life. With my sister. And I was the fool sitting in the middle of their mess. By now you know the truth. My sister Janet gave away her daughter Kaylee like trash. My husband Ryan isn't just Kaylee's father. He's been quietly building a new life with Janet and her son Liam. I found their custody papers hidden in his briefcase. I should have run. Instead, I stayed. Because I wasn't done. Not until I had every last piece of the truth in my hands. After I found the custody papers, I didn't confront Ryan right away. I wanted to see how far he'd go, so I acted normal. I packed his lunch. I kissed him goodbye. I let him think I was still blind. Meanwhile, I was tracking his car, his phone, even his credit card purchases. Every time he told me he was working late, I knew exactly which hotel he was at. And who he was with. The betrayal was so deep it stopped feeling real. I'd sit across from him at dinner, watching him eat, and wonder how I ever thought I knew this man. One Saturday afternoon, while Ryan was running errands, Janet showed up at my apartment. She looked smug, expensive sunglasses, designer diaper bag. Liam on her hip, dressed in tiny Nike sneakers. Can we talk? She said, brushing past me before I could answer. I wanted to throw her out, but I couldn't stop staring at Liam. He had Ryan's eyes. The same eyes that used to make me feel safe. Now they just made me sick. Janet sat down on my couch and sighed dramatically. Look, I know everyone's mad at me, but I did what I had to do. Kaylee was holding me back. Liam is my chance to start fresh. I clenched my fists. You gave away your daughter like she was nothing. Her lips curled into a smirk. Not nothing. I got a good deal. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Deal? She shrugged. Let's just say the adoption wasn't exactly legal. But the couple paid well. I needed the money. Flights to Europe aren't cheap. I thought I was going to be sick. As she got up to leave, she leaned down and whispered, You don't need to worry about Ryan. He'll always take care of me. He already promised. I froze. Promised what? But she just smiled and walked out, slamming the door behind her. My blood ran cold. The next family gathering was chaos. Janet brought Liam, parading him around like royalty. My parents refused to speak to her. My dad muttered that she was dead to him again. My mom just cried quietly in the corner, but Ryan? He hovered near Janet the whole time, holding Liam, helping with bottles, acting like her partner. When I asked him to hold my niece's baby girl, he brushed me off. I'm busy, I wanted to scream. But instead, I pulled my aunt aside and whispered the truth. She gasped so loudly the whole room turned. Ryan's the father? The room erupted. My dad lunged at Ryan, fists clenched. Janet screamed. My mom fainted. Liam started crying. And me? I stood there in the middle of it all, holding the envelope of proof, shaking so badly I thought I'd collapse. The next day, I met with the PI again. He slid another folder across the table. This one had Kaylee's new address. The family who adopted her lived just 2 towns over. They thought it was a legal adoption. They had no idea they were raising a child born from incestuous betrayal. I flipped through the photos. Kaylee playing in the yard, riding a pink bike, smiling with her new parents. She looked happy, safe. Tears blurred my vision, but then I turned the last page. And my blood turned to ice. Ryan's car was parked outside their house. That night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I waited until Ryan came home and slammed the folder on the table. I know you've been seeing her. Don't lie to me, he froze. His face went pale, then he whispered, She's my daughter. I just wanted to see her. You wouldn't understand, I laughed bitterly. Wouldn't understand? She should have been our daughter, Ryan. You destroyed me for her. His eyes filled with tears. I never meant to hurt you. Janet, she said she'd give Kaylee up if I didn't stay quiet. I couldn't risk it, I shook my head. You risked everything else instead. After that, things spiraled fast. Ryan started disappearing overnight. Janet flaunted new jewelry and gifts, clearly bought with Ryan's money. The family was completely fractured. But then the worst blow came. My grandmother died. At the funeral, Janet showed up in head-to-toe black, Liam in a tiny suit, Ryan right beside her. People whispered. My father refused to let them sit in the family row. After the service, as we lowered Grandma's coffin, I remembered the last promise I made to her. Find Kaylee. I knew then I couldn't just sit back anymore. That night, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Kaylee's adoptive parents. The subject line was simple: the truth about your daughter's birth family. My finger hovered over the send button, my heart racing because once I sent it, there'd be no turning back. By now, everything was shattered. My sister Janet had given away her daughter, Kaylee. My husband Ryan wasn't just her father. He was secretly playing daddy to Liam, too. My grandmother was dead and my family was in ruins. I had one promise left to keep: find Kaylee. But keeping that promise meant destroying Ryan and Janet in the process. And honestly, I was ready. That night, I pressed send. The email went straight to Kaylee's adoptive parents. I laid it all out: the illegal adoption, the DNA results, the affair between my sister and my husband. I attached every document the PI had given me. Within an hour, my phone buzzed. It was them. The adoptive mother's voice shook as she spoke. We had no idea. We thought everything was above board, please. Don't take her away from us. I promised her I wasn't after Kaylee. I just wanted her safe, loved, protected. She whispered. She is. I swear she is. For the first time in months, I felt a small sliver of peace. Kaylee was okay, but Ryan and Janet? They were about to learn what it feels like to lose everything. I started with Janet. I knew she thrived on appearances. She wanted to be the glamorous boy mom with her perfect little life. So I sent anonymous packages to everyone she knew: her in-laws, her church, even her boss. Inside, copies of the adoption papers and photos of her with Ryan. The fallout was immediate. Her mother-in-law called my mom in hysterics. Her boss fired her for ethical concerns. Her husband? He threw her out. Suddenly, Janet and Liam were homeless. I didn't feel guilty. Not even for a second. Next, I went after Ryan. He'd been draining our savings, funneling money to Janet. I had bank statements to prove it. So I marched into his office with a neat little folder for HR. Inside, documentation of embezzlement, evidence of workplace affairs, even screenshots of him bad-mouthing his boss. By the end of the week, he was unemployed. His reputation? Gone. The man who once strutted around like he owned the world was suddenly begging me for help. I smiled sweetly and said, "Ask Janet. You two are good at destroying lives together." One night, Janet showed up at my door. Liam was asleep in his stroller and she was a wreck. Mascara streaked, hair tangled, shaking with rage. "You did this!" she screamed. "You ruined my life." I stood there calm as stone. "You ruined it yourself the day you gave away your daughter and crawled into my husband's bed." Her eyes filled with tears, but there was no regret in them. Only hatred. "You'll regret this," she hissed. Before I could respond, Ryan's car pulled up. He stormed out yelling at both of us. It was chaos. Janet sobbing, Ryan swearing, Liam crying. And in that moment, I realized something. They deserved each other. A week later, as I was cleaning out Grandma's things, I found a sealed envelope addressed to me. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. She wrote, "If you're reading this, I'm gone. Promise me you'll protect Kaylee from them. You have the strength I never had. Don't let history repeat itself." At the bottom was a small key. It opened a safety deposit box at the bank. When I went there, I found stacks of savings bonds, every penny Grandma had left behind. All in my name. Enough to hire lawyers. Enough to fight. Enough to finally win. I hired the best family attorney in the state. Together, we built a case to challenge Kaylee's adoption, not to take her away, but to legally expose the fraud Janet had committed. When the case went public, it made headlines. Mother sells daughter in illegal adoption. Sisters torn apart by scandal. The tabloids had a field day. Janet tried to play the victim. She cried in interviews. She claimed she was pressured by Ryan, but the receipts told the truth. The world saw her for what she was, and Ryan, he vanished. Too cowardly to face the heat. For the first time in years, my parents stood by me. My father said quietly, "You did what had to be done." My mother hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. The rest of the family rallied around Kaylee's adoptive parents. We made sure they had every resource, every bit of support they needed. Kaylee wasn't coming back to us, but she was safe. And that was enough. Just when I thought it was over, Janet pulled one last stunt. She filed for full custody of Liam, against her ex-husband, against Ryan, against everyone. She claimed she was the only fit parent. But in court, the judge read every document I'd provided. Every lie. Every dirty secret. In the end, Janet lost custody completely. Liam went to his father. Janet stormed out of the courthouse screaming, "You'll pay for this!" But we all knew the truth. She'd already paid. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Kaylee at a playground. Taken from behind a fence. The message read, "She's still mine. You can't keep her from me forever." It was Janet, and in that moment I realized this war wasn't over. Not yet. By now everything was out in the open. My sister Janet sold her daughter Kaylee. My husband Ryan turned out to be her father, and Liam's secret dad too. I exposed them both, ruined their reputations, and protected Kaylee's adoptive family, but Janet wasn't done. She sent me a photo of Kaylee at a playground, claiming, "She's still mine." That was the moment I knew. I couldn't just fight this battle halfway. I had to end it once and for all. I went straight to the police with a threatening text. Between the illegal adoption evidence, the court case, and now this, they finally had enough to open a full investigation into Janet. Within days, detectives visited her apartment. She tried to play innocent, but they found something chilling. Surveillance photos of Kaylee. Dozens of them. Printed and taped to her wall. She'd been stalking her own daughter. When the officers brought the photos to me, I felt sick. Kaylee was smiling in every picture, unaware of the danger lurking just a few feet away. That was it. I pressed charges. The day they took Janet away was surreal. She screamed, fought, even tried to spit at the officers. Liam was with his father by then, thank God, so he didn't have to see it. Ryan, of course, was nowhere to be found. He'd been couch surfing since losing his job. Someone told me they'd spotted him drinking at a dive bar across town, muttering about how his life was stolen. He didn't even show up to court for Janet, the man who ruined my life with her, abandoned her the second things got hard. That was the only justice he'd ever give me. Janet's trial was brutal. The prosecutors laid out everything. The fake adoption, the fraud, the stalking. Every dirty detail I had to testify. Standing there, looking her in the eye, I expected to feel pity. But I didn't. All I felt was steel in my veins. When the judge sentenced her to 5 years in prison, she turned to me and hissed, "You'll never be happy. He'll come back to me." I just stared at her and said, "You'll never see him again." Ryan didn't last much longer after that. With Janet locked up, his fantasy life crumbled. He showed up at my apartment one night, drunk and pathetic, begging me to just give us another chance. He dropped to his knees, sobbing. "You're my wife. We can fix this. We can adopt a baby, just you and me." I cut him off. "You already had 2 babies, Ryan, and you destroyed them both." Then I handed him divorce papers. He signed them with shaking hands. That was the last time I ever saw him. The best part of all this? Kaylee's adoptive parents reached out again. They invited me to visit cautiously to see her. The first time I saw her in their living room, coloring at the table, I almost broke down. She looked so much like Ryan, but she also had my grandmother's eyes. When her adoptive mom introduced me as Auntie, Kaylee tilted her head curiously, then smiled. "Do you want to color with me?" she asked. I sat down, picked up a crayon, and whispered, "More than anything, for the first time in years, I felt hope again." Afterward, I drove to the cemetery. I knelt by my grandmother's grave and told her everything. How I'd kept my promise. How Kaylee was safe. How Janet was finally facing consequences. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I swear I felt her hand on my shoulder. I whispered, "It's over now, Grandma. She'll never hurt Kaylee again." It's been 2 years since Janet went to prison. She'll be out eventually, but by then, Kaylee will be old enough to understand the truth, and strong enough to decide for herself. Ryan disappeared. Rumor has it he left the state, chasing construction jobs and burning bridges wherever he went. I don't care if I ever see him again. As for me, I built a new life. Therapy, friends, a job I love. I even started dating again, slowly, carefully, but most importantly, I kept my grandmother's promise. If there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who break you. And sometimes strangers, like Kaylee's adoptive parents, become the ones who truly protect and love you. I lost a sister. I lost a husband. But I gained something much more powerful, the knowledge that I am stronger than the people who tried to destroy me. And every time I see Kaylee smile, I know Grandma was right. I was the one strong enough to end the cycle. This story isn't about what they took from me. It's about what I refused to let them take from her. So if you ever find yourself betrayed by the people you trusted most, remember this: their lies don't define you. Your choices do. And sometimes the best revenge is simply surviving and making sure the people they hurt end up safer, stronger, and loved. Because in the end, that's what real justice looks like.